The year was 2147, and humanity had finally reached the stars. For centuries, people dreamed of traveling beyond their solar system, exploring alien worlds and meeting intelligent life. That dream came true when Earth's first faster-than-light engine, the quantum pulse drive, was successfully tested. It opened up a universe full of possibilities. But as history often showed, not all dreams turned out to be sweet. On December 24th, 2025, something changed forever. A massive fleet of ships appeared in Earth's orbit. These weren't small scout vessels or curious explorers. They were colossal constructs, each one larger than any human city. Their surfaces shimmered with an eerie light, reflecting colors no human eye could easily describe. The ships didn't attack right away. Instead, they simply hovered there, silent and imposing, casting shadows over continents below. Panic spread across the globe almost instantly. Governments scrambled to respond. News outlets broadcast non-stop coverage, showing blurry footage of the alien armada while scientists tried to analyze what little data they could gather. No one knew who these visitors were, why they had come, or what they wanted. All anyone knew was that Earth wasn't alone anymore, and that this encounter might mean the end of everything. 3 days passed before the aliens made contact. On Christmas Day, a transmission played on every screen, radio, and communication device on Earth. The voice speaking was deep and resonant, synthesized into perfect English. "Attention, inhabitants of Earth," it began. "We are the Cosmic Concord, the governing body of this galaxy. Your species has breached interstellar space without permission. This act violates our laws." The message continued, laying out terms that left humanity reeling. According to the Concord, Earth was now under their jurisdiction. Humans would have to dismantle their space programs, cease all attempts at colonization, and pay tribute in the form of resources. Failure to comply would result in annihilation. The ultimatum gave Earth 7 days to decide. World leaders gathered in emergency summits, debating how to respond. Some argued for surrender, believing resistance would only lead to destruction. Others insisted on defiance, claiming humanity couldn't bow to threats from beings they barely understood. Meanwhile, ordinary people watched helplessly, unsure whether to fear, anger, or hope, amidst the chaos. One name rose above the rest: Alexandra Lex Rider. At just 32 years old, Lex was already a legend in the fledgling field of interstellar travel. She commanded the Erebus, an experimental warship designed to test new technologies developed by Earth's brightest minds. Unlike traditional military vessels, the Erebus combined cutting-edge weapon systems with advanced AI assistance and modular design. It was fast, sleek, and unlike anything else in Earth's fleet. But Lex wasn't famous just because of her ship. She had earned her reputation through sheer audacity. During training exercises, she once disabled 3 enemy drones using nothing but a glitch in their targeting software. In simulations meant to prepare pilots for combat, she consistently found creative solutions to impossible scenarios. Her superiors called her reckless. Her crew called her brilliant. And everyone agreed on one thing: Lex Rider always smiled. Even when the odds were stacked against her. When news of the Concorde's ultimatum broke, Lex was stationed aboard the Erebus near Mars, like millions of others. She watched the broadcast with growing disbelief. When the transmission ended, silence filled the bridge of her ship. Finally, Lieutenant Meijang, her tactical officer, spoke. "What do we do, Captain?" Lex leaned back in her chair, tapping her fingers thoughtfully against the armrest. Then she did what she always did when faced with overwhelming challenges. She smiled. "We don't roll over," she said firmly. "Not yet, anyway." Her decision came quickly. Ignoring direct orders from Earth Command to stand down, Lex activated the Erebus comm system and patched into the global broadcast feed. Within moments, Her face appeared alongside the Concorde's message, projected on the screens worldwide. Behind her, the crew exchanged nervous glances, unsure if their captain had lost her mind. "Greetings, Cosmic Concorde," Lex began, her tone calm but firm. "I'm Captain Alexandra Ryder of the United Earth Space Force vessel Erebus. I hear you've issued some interesting demands." She paused, letting her words sink in. "While we consider your proposal, allow me to extend my own. Leave our planet alone, and maybe we can avoid unnecessary conflict." Then she smiled a wide, confident grin that seemed completely out of place given the situation. Before signing off, she added, "Oh, and happy holidays. Peace on Earth and goodwill toward all species, right?" The reaction was immediate. Around the world, people gasped, cheered, or stared in stunned silence. Never before had anyone dared challenge the Concorde so openly. Even Lex's own government was furious, accusing her of jeopardizing humanity's survival. But among ordinary citizens, something shifted. For the first time since the aliens arrived, there was a spark of hope. If one person could stand up to them, maybe humanity could too. Back aboard the Erebus, Lex turned to her crew. "Well," she said, still smiling, "that ought to buy us some time." No one knew then just how much time they'd need, or how far Lex's smile would take them. Lex's bold move didn't just shock the Cosmic Concorde. It ignited a firestorm on Earth. Her unauthorized broadcast split humanity into two camps. Those who saw her as a reckless hothead, and those who viewed her as a hero. Protests erupted in cities across the globe, with people holding up signs that read, "We don't bow," and "Smile like Lex." Social media exploded with memes of her confident grin, accompanied by hashtags like #HumanityFightsBack and #NoToConcorde. For the first time in days, fear began to give way to defiance. But not everyone was cheering. World leaders were furious. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session, where Lex's actions were condemned as reckless and dangerous. "Captain Ryder has jeopardized diplomatic efforts," one official shouted during the meeting. Another accused her of starting a war humanity couldn't win. Orders were issued for her arrest, but enforcing them proved difficult. By the time Earth Command sent ships to intercept the Erebus, Lex had already slipped away, disappearing into the vastness of space. Aboard the Erebus, Lex and her crew prepared for what came next. They knew they couldn't fight the entire Cosmic Concorde, not yet, anyway, but they could gather intelligence. If humanity stood any chance of resisting, they needed to understand their enemy better. And Lex had a plan. The target was Concorde Outpost Theta 9, a small but heavily guarded station orbiting Neptune. It served as a supply depot and communications relay for the alien fleet. Breaking in wouldn't be easy, but Lex wasn't aiming for a direct assault. Instead, she intended to sneak aboard, steal data, and slip away before anyone realized they were there. It was risky, but it was also their best shot at learning something useful. "All right, team," Lex said, addressing her crew in the briefing room. "This is going to be tricky, so listen up. We'll use the ship's cloaking device to get close. Once we're inside their perimeter, we'll deploy the boarding pod. Dr. Kane, you're with me on the ground. Lieutenant Zhang, you stay here and keep the Erebus ready to jump at a moment's notice." Dr. Elias Kane, the ship's xenobiologist, raised an eyebrow. "You want me to come along? I'm not exactly combat trained." "You're coming because you know more about alien tech than anyone else," Lex replied with a smirk. "Besides, I promise I won't let anything happen to you." Mei Jiang, seated at the far end of the table, crossed her arms. "And what happens if this goes sideways? What if they catch us?" "They won't," Lex said confidently, "because we're not sticking around long enough for them to figure out we're there." The mission began under the cover of darkness. Using the Erebus' advanced stealth systems, the ship approached Theta 9 undetected. As they neared the outpost, Lex marveled at its sheer size. Even though it was considered minor compared to other Concorde installations, it dwarfed anything humans had built in space. Massive energy shields surrounded the structure, pulsing faintly with blue light. Automated drones patrolled the area, scanning for intruders. Once they were within range, Lex and Kane climbed into the boarding pod, a compact, bullet-shaped craft designed for covert operations. With a soft hiss, the pod detached from the Erebus and drifted silently toward the outpost. May monitored their progress from the bridge, her fingers hovering over the controls as she waited for the signal to extract them. Inside the pod, Lex double-checked her gear. She wore a sleek black suit equipped with holographic camouflage, allowing her to blend seamlessly into her surroundings. Kane, meanwhile, looked less than thrilled. He clutched a portable scanner tightly, muttering under his breath about how he'd rather be back in the lab. "Relax, Doc," Lex said, giving him a reassuring smile. "We'll be in and out before they even know we're here." "I hope you're right," Kane muttered. "Because if we get caught, I'm blaming you." The pod docked with the outpost through a maintenance hatch located on the underside. Thanks to Dax, the ship's ALX had managed to hack into the outpost systems earlier, disabling the security protocols for this particular entrance. Still, she moved cautiously once they were inside, her weapon drawn and her senses sharp. The interior of Theta 9 was unlike anything Lex had ever seen. The walls glowed faintly, casting eerie shadows across the corridors. Strange symbols etched into the surfaces pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Alien workers, beings with elongated limbs and translucent skin, moved about. Oblivious to the intruders hiding among them, Kane activated his scanner, analyzing the environment. "Interesting," he murmured. "Their technology seems to be based on quantum entanglement. Very advanced." "Focus, Doc," Lex whispered. "We're here for intel, not a science lesson." They made their way deeper into the outpost, avoiding patrols and security cameras. Eventually, they reached the main data core, a massive chamber filled with glowing conduits and humming machinery. Kane got to work immediately, connecting his scanner to the system. Lines of alien code scrolled across the screen as he sifted through the information. "Got it," he said after several tense minutes. "I've downloaded everything related to their military capabilities and internal communications. This should give us a clearer picture of how the Concorde operates." Just as Kane finished extracting the data, alarms blared throughout the outpost. Red lights flashed, and the hum of machinery grew louder. Someone or something had detected their presence. "Time to go," Lex shouted, grabbing Kane by the arm and pulling him toward the exit. Behind them, heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. Reinforcements were coming. They sprinted back the way they came, dodging laser blasts and narrowly avoiding capture. At one point, Kane tripped over a loose conduit, nearly dropping his scanner. Lex hauled him to his feet without missing a beat, urging him to keep moving. When they finally reached the boarding pod, May's voice crackled over the comms. "Captain, we've got trouble. Concorde fighters are inbound. You need to hurry." "We're on our way," Lex replied, slamming the hatch shut behind them. The pod launched seconds later, hurtling through space as Concorde ships gave chase. Laser fire lit up the void, forcing May to perform evasive maneuvers with the Erebus. "Hold on tight," Lex called out, gripping the edge of her seat as the pod shook violently. "Dax, plot a course for the jump point." "Calculating trajectory," Dax responded calmly. "Prepare for a high G acceleration." With a final burst of speed, the pod docked with the Erebus and the ship engaged its quantum pulse drive. In an instant, they vanished, leaving the Concorde forces behind. Back aboard the Erebus, the crew let out a collective sigh of relief. Lex grinned as she removed her helmet. Well, that was fun. Kane collapsed into a chair, still clutching his scanner. Fun? Are you insane? We almost died. But we didn't, Lex said, patting him on the shoulder. And now we've got exactly what we came for. Over the next few hours, Kane analyzed the stolen data, uncovering secrets that shocked even him. The Cosmic Concord wasn't as united as it appeared. Internal memos revealed deep divisions among its member species. Some factions resented humanity being singled out, while others questioned the morality of subjugating weaker civilizations. There were whispers of rebellion brewing within the Concord itself. Lex listened intently as Kane explained his findings. If we play our cards right, she said thoughtfully, we might be able to turn them against each other. Her smile returned, brighter than ever. Humanity's fight was far from over, but for the first time, they had a real chance. And Lex Rider wasn't about to waste it. The stolen data from Concord Outpost Theta 9 changed everything. For the first time, humanity had a glimpse into the inner workings of the Cosmic Concord, and what they saw was both terrifying and hopeful. The Concord wasn't the monolithic empire it pretended to be. Beneath its polished surface lay cracks, fissures that could be widened if pushed hard enough. Lex knew this was their chance. If they played their cards right, they might not have to fight the entire Concord head-on. Instead, they could exploit those divisions, turning the enemy against itself. But there was no time to celebrate. The Concord's response to the raid on Theta 9 came swiftly and brutally. Within hours, reports flooded in from across the solar system. Alien dreadnoughts were mobilizing, their massive forms casting ominous shadows over Earth's colonies on Mars and the Moon. It was clear the Concord wanted blood, and Lex Rider was at the top of their list. They're sending Vraction, Dr. Elias Kane announced grimly as he reviewed the latest intel. The name sent a chill through the crew. Vraction wasn't just another ship. It was a biomechanical juggernaut, part machine, part living organism. Towering over most vessels, it bristled with weapons capable of obliterating entire fleets in seconds. Worse still, it was commanded by one of the Concord's most feared enforcers, an alien known only as the Harvester. Rumors said the Harvester never left survivors. Lex leaned back in her chair, staring at the holographic display of Vraction hovering above the briefing table. Her smile didn't falter, but her eyes narrowed slightly. So they're pulling out the big guns, she said casually. Good. That means we're getting under their skin. Mei Zhang, seated nearby, frowned. Captain, this isn't a joke. Vraction is faster, stronger, and smarter than anything we faced before. Even with the Erebus upgrades, we can't take it head-on. I'm not planning to, Lex replied, tapping her fingers thoughtfully against the armrest. We don't need to fight fair. We just need to stay alive long enough to make them look weak. Her plan was risky, bordering on suicidal. Using Saturn's rings as cover, the Erebus would lure Vraction into a trap. The gas giant's immense gravitational pull could be weaponized if timed perfectly to hurl debris directly into the dreadnought's path. It wouldn't destroy Vraction outright, but it might disable it long enough for the Erebus to escape. And more importantly, it would send a message. Humanity wouldn't go down without a fight. The journey to Saturn took days, during which tension aboard the Erebus grew palpable. Everyone knew what was at stake. If Lex's plan failed, they wouldn't just lose the ship, they'd lose hope. Humanity's fragile resistance movement depended on her success. Failure meant surrender, or worse, annihilation. As they approached Saturn, the crew prepared for battle. Dax ran diagnostics on every system, ensuring the Erebus was ready for whatever came next. May plotted trajectories and rehearsed maneuvers until her hands moved automatically across the controls. Kane double-checked the cloaking device, muttering about how impossible it all seemed. Only Lex appeared calm, almost unnervingly so. She spent hours in the observation deck, watching Saturn's rings shimmer in the sunlight. Her mind focused and sharp thought when Vraction finally arrived. It did so with terrifying speed. Its silhouette blotted out the stars as it emerged from hyperspace, its hull pulsing with bioluminescent energy. Smaller escort ships flanked it, forming a deadly convoy. From the Erebus bridge, Lex watched the scene unfold on the main view screen. "Showtime," she murmured, her lips curving into a grin. The chase began immediately. Vraction locked onto the Erebus, unleashing volleys of plasma fire that tore through space like streaks of lightning. Lex pushed the ship to its limits, weaving between chunks of ice and rock from Saturn's rings. The crew worked in perfect sync, dodging attacks and firing countermeasures to throw off the Dreadnought's targeting systems. "Vraction's closing in," May shouted, her voice tight with urgency. "They're launching drones." "Keep us steady," Lex ordered, her tone steady despite the chaos around her. "Dax, activate Plan Delta. Let's give them something to think about." Plan Delta involved deploying decoy pods, small, automated drones programmed to mimic the Erebus signature. As soon as they were launched, Vraction's escorts broke formation, chasing after the false targets. It bought the Erebus precious seconds, but not enough. Vraction itself remained relentless, its massive cannons charging for a devastating blast. "Now!" Lex yelled, gripping the arms of her command chair. May executed the maneuver flawlessly, using Saturn's gravity to slingshot a cluster of icy debris straight toward Vraction. The impact was catastrophic. Chunks of frozen rock slammed into the Dreadnought shields, causing them to flicker and fail. Secondary explosions rippled across its hull as internal systems overloaded. For a moment, silence fell over the Erebus bridge. Then cheers erupted as Vraction staggered, its engine sputtering as it struggled to maintain control. Lex didn't join in the celebration. Instead, she turned to May. "Get us out of here." Maximum burn. The Erebus vanished into hyperspace moments later, leaving Vraction crippled but not destroyed. Though the victory was temporary, it was enough to prove a point. Humanity wasn't as helpless as the Concord believed. Back on Earth, news of the skirmish spread quickly. Footage captured by satellites showed the Erebus darting through Saturn's rings, dodging impossible odds before delivering a crippling blow to Vraction. People cheered in the streets, waving flags and chanting Lex's name. Social media exploded once again, with memes depicting her as a galactic David facing off against the Concorde's Goliath. Even skeptics who had doubted her earlier couldn't deny the impact of her actions. Hope, fragile as it was, began to take root, but Lex didn't stop there. Knowing the Concorde would regroup and come after them with even greater force, she decided to strike while momentum was on their side. Using the stolen data, she crafted a new message wand aimed not just at Earth, but at the entire galaxy. "This is Captain Alexandra Ryder of the United Earth Space Force vessel Erebus," she began, broadcasting live across every frequency. Behind her, images of the Concorde's corruption flashed on screen, evidence of exploitation, oppression, and betrayal within their ranks. "To the Cosmic Concorde, I say this. You claim to bring order to the galaxy, but your laws are built on fear and lies. You demand obedience, yet you refuse to earn it. Well, let me make one thing clear. We won't bow to tyrants. Not today, not ever." Her smile returned, fierce and unyielding. "If you want humanity, come take us yourselves. But know this, we'll fight for every inch. And when you fall, the galaxy will see you for what you truly are." The transmission ended with a single image, the Erebus soaring past Saturn's rings, defiant and free. Across the galaxy, reactions varied. Some species dismissed Lex's words as bravado, believing humanity too weak to pose a real threat. Others, however, saw an opportunity. Alien dissidents who had long resented the Concorde's rule reached out to Lex in secret, offering support and information. Among them was a faction calling themselves the Free Systems Alliance, a coalition of oppressed worlds eager to break free from Concorde. Domination.Lex listened carefully as representatives of the Free Systems explained their plight. Their homeworlds had been stripped of resources, their people enslaved or exterminated. They had tried to resist before, but without unity, their efforts had failed. Now, inspired by humanity's defiance, they wanted to join forces. Together, they could dismantle the Concorde piece by piece. "We'll help you," Lex promised, her voice firm. "But understand this, we're not doing this for power or revenge. We're doing it because no one should live in fear. Not humans, not you, not anyone." Her words resonated deeply. For the first time, the galaxy saw humanity not as victims, but as leaders. Lex Rider's smile became a symbol of resistance. Proof that courage and ingenuity could overcome even the greatest odds. As the Erebus prepared for its next mission, Lex stood on the observation deck, gazing at the stars. The road ahead would be long and dangerous, but she felt no fear. Humanity had taken its first step toward freedom, and she intended to see it through to the end. The alliance with the Free Systems Alliance marked a turning point in humanity's fight against the cosmic Concorde. For the first time, Earth wasn't alone. Dozens of alien species, each scarred by the Concorde's tyranny, pledged their support to Lex and her crew aboard the Erebus. Together, they formed a ragtag coalition united by one goal: to dismantle the Concorde's oppressive regime. But while the Free Systems brought numbers and resources, Lex knew that winning this war would require more than brute force. They needed strategy, precision, and a way to strike at the heart of the Concorde itself. Dr. Elias Kane spent countless hours analyzing the stolen data from Theta 9, piecing together a map of the Concorde's power structure. What he discovered was both alarming and promising. At the center of the Concorde's operations lay a heavily guarded nebula known as the Veil, a swirling expanse of ionized gas and radiation that shielded their command hub from prying eyes. The hub controlled every aspect of the Concorde's empire, from communications to resource distribution. If it could be disabled, the entire system would collapse. Lex gathered her crew in the briefing room, her expression serious but determined. "Here's the plan," she began, pointing to a holographic projection of the Veil. "We hit their command hub, disable their comms network, and broadcast everything we've got on their corruption to the galaxy. Once the truth gets out, their own people will turn on them." Mei Zhang frowned, studying the map. "Captain, the Veil is suicide territory. Even Concorde ships avoid going in there unless absolutely necessary. It's filled with electromagnetic storms, debris fields, and who knows what else." "That's why they think it's safe," Lex replied with a sly smile. "They won't expect us to try something so crazy. And if we pull it off, we'll cripple their ability to coordinate attacks." Kane raised an eyebrow. "You make it sound easy. But how do you propose we get through that mess without getting fried?" "We adapt," Lex said simply. "Dax, I want you to run simulations on every possible route through the Veil. Find us a path, no matter how narrow or dangerous. May, prep the ship for maximum shielding. We're going to need every ounce of protection we can get. Kane, keep digging into their systems. We'll need codes to bypass their defenses once we're inside." The crew nodded, each member focused on their task. Over the next few days, the Erebus buzzed with activity as preparations reached a fever pitch. Supplies were stockpiled, weapon systems were upgraded, and contingency plans were drawn up for every imaginable scenario. Despite the grim odds, morale remained high. Everyone aboard believed in Lex's vision and in themselves. Entering the veil felt like stepping into chaos. As soon as the Erebus crossed its threshold, the ship was bombarded by violent electromagnetic waves that scrambled sensors and destabilized engines. Bright flashes of lightning illuminated the cockpit, casting eerie shadows across the crew's faces. Static crackled over the comms, making communication nearly impossible. "Shields are holding for now," May reported, her voice strained as she fought to maintain control of the ship. "But we can't take much more of this." "Stay on course," Lex ordered, gripping the arms of her chair tightly. Her knuckles turned white as the ship rocked violently, tossed around by invisible forces. "Dax, guide us through the storm. Keep us steady." "I am recalculating trajectories in real time," Dax replied calmly, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Suggest reducing speed by 15% to minimize stress on structural integrity." "Do it," Lex snapped. She glanced at Kane, who was frantically typing commands into his console. "How close are we to the hub?" "We're almost there," Kane replied, squinting at his screen. "Just a little farther." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. A massive chunk of metallic debris hurtled toward them, glowing red-hot from friction with the nebula's atmosphere. May yanked the controls hard to the side, narrowly avoiding a collision. Sparks flew from nearby panels as the impact shook the ship. "Damage report." Lex shouted. "Portside stabilizer is offline," May answered. "Minor hull breaches on decks 3 and 5. Repair drones are en route." "Focus on keeping us alive," Lex said firmly. "We're not turning back now." Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the Erebus emerged into a small clearing within the veil. There, looming ahead, was the Concorde's command hub, a colossal structure encased in shimmering energy shields. Turrets lined its surface, scanning for intruders. Smaller ships patrolled the perimeter, ready to intercept any threats. "This is it," Lex murmured, her eyes narrowing as she studied the fortress-like station. "Time to show them what humans are made of." Using codes provided by Kane, the Erebus hacked into the hub's external defenses, creating a brief window of opportunity. With Dax coordinating the attack, the crew launched a series of diversionary strikes, drawing enemy fire away from their true objective. Meanwhile, Lex led a boarding party consisting of herself, Kane, and a squad of elite Marines. Their mission was simple yet perilous: infiltrate the hub, disable the comms array, and upload the damning evidence of the Concorde's crimes. The moment they docked, chaos erupted. Alien guards swarmed the corridors, exchanging fire with the Marines as Lex and Kane raced toward the central chamber. Blaster bolts ricocheted off walls, and the air crackled with tension. Lex moved with fluid precision, her weapon never wavering as she took down enemies with calculated shots. "Keep moving," she urged, pulling Kane along behind her. He stumbled occasionally, clutching his scanner like a lifeline, but he refused to slow down. "Almost there." When they reached the comms array, Kane worked quickly, connecting his device to the terminal. Lines of alien code scrolled across his screen as he uploaded the stolen data. Outside, explosions rocked the station as the Erebus continued its assault, buying them precious seconds. "There," Kane exclaimed, hitting the final key. "It's done." The signal is broadcasting across the entire galaxy. Lex grinned, relief washing over her face. "Good work, Doc. Let's get out of here before." Her words were cut short as a group of heavily armed Concorde soldiers burst into the room, weapons trained on them. Standing at the front was an imposing figure clad in black armor, the Harvester. His voice was cold and mechanical as he addressed them. "Your defiance ends here, human." For a moment, the situation seemed hopeless. Outnumbered and outgunned, Lex and her team had nowhere to run. But then, Lex did something unexpected. She smiled, not a smirk of arrogance, but a genuine, Warm smile that caught everyone off guard. "You're too late," she said softly. "The galaxy already knows the truth. Your empire is crumbling, whether you admit it or not." The harvester hesitated, just for a split second. That moment of doubt was all Lex needed. With a swift motion, she activated a hidden EMP device, disabling the soldiers' weapons and sending the room into darkness. Seizing the opportunity, she grabbed Kane and sprinted toward the exit, shouting orders into her comms. "Dax, initiate extraction protocol. Get us out of here now." The Erebus swooped in moments later, blasting a hole through the station's outer wall. Lex and her team leapt aboard the boarding pod, which detached and sped back to the safety of the ship. Behind them, the Concorde's command hub descended into chaos as internal systems failed and panicked aliens scrambled to regain control as the Erebus jumped to hyperspace. Leaving the veil far behind, Lex stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak past. Her smile returned, brighter than ever. The battle wasn't over, but the tide had shifted. For the first time, the Concorde looked vulnerable, and humanity stood tall. Across the galaxy, reactions poured in. Species that had lived under the Concorde's rule for centuries rose up in rebellion, inspired by Lex's actions. Messages of gratitude and solidarity flooded Earth's channels, hailing humanity as liberators. The name Lex Rider became synonymous with courage and defiance. Back aboard the Erebus, the crew celebrated their victory quietly, knowing the hardest battles still lay ahead. But for now, they allowed themselves a moment of hope. Humanity had taken another step toward freedom, and Lex intended to see it through to the end. The broadcast from the Concorde's command hub rippled through the galaxy like a shockwave. Every species, every planet, every outpost under the Cosmic Concorde's rule received a message loud and clear. The evidence was undeniable. Decades of exploitation, oppression, and betrayal lay bare for all to see. Species that had once feared the Concorde now saw them for what they truly were, a corrupt empire built on lies and greed. For humanity, the impact was immediate. Earth became a beacon of hope, a symbol of resistance against tyranny. People who had once doubted Lex Rider's defiance now rallied behind her, inspired by her courage and determination. Protests erupted across alien worlds, with oppressed populations rising up against their overlords. In some regions, entire fleets defected from the Concorde, joining the Free Systems Alliance in their fight for freedom. But the war wasn't over yet. The Concorde fought back with brutal efficiency, determined to crush the rebellion before it spread further. Retaliatory strikes hit colonies, supply lines, and even neutral planets suspected of aiding humanity. Casualties mounted on both sides, and the cost of freedom grew heavier with each passing day. Yet despite the mounting losses, Lex remained steadfast. She knew this was a fight worth waging, not just for Earth, but for every being who had ever suffered under the Concorde's rule. Lex stood on the bridge of the Erebus, staring at the holographic map displayed before her. It showed the shifting front lines of the conflict, marked by red zones controlled by the Concorde and blue zones held by the Free Systems Alliance. Progress was slow, but steady. More and more systems were breaking free from the Concorde's grip, bolstered by the growing strength of the coalition. "We've made a dent," Mei Jiang said, breaking the silence. "But they're still strong." "Strong doesn't mean unbeatable," Lex replied, her voice calm but resolute. "Every battle we win weakens them. Every defection chips away at their foundation. We just need to keep pushing." Dr. Elias Kane approached, holding a data tablet. "Captain, I've analyzed recent reports. The Concorde's core fleet is regrouping near Alpha Centauri. If we strike there, we could deal them a critical blow." Lex nodded thoughtfully. "Alpha Centauri, that's risky. They'll be expecting us." "They might," Kane admitted. But if we can draw them into a trap, use their arrogance against them, we could end this once and for all. The plan was ambitious, bordering on reckless. The Erebus would lead a small strike force directly into the heart of the Concorde's fleet, drawing their attention while the bulk of the Free Systems Alliance prepared to ambush them. Timing would be everything. One misstep could spell disaster for the entire coalition. As the crew prepared for the mission, tensions ran high. Everyone aboard the Erebus understood the stakes. This wasn't just another skirmish, it was the final stand. Victory would mean freedom for countless species. Defeat would mean the end of everything they had fought for. The battle began with a bang. The Erebus emerged from hyperspace near Alpha Centauri, its weapons blazing as it charged straight into the Concorde's formation. Alien ships swarmed around them, unleashing volleys of plasma fire that lit up space like a fireworks display. Lex pushed the ship to its limits, weaving between enemy vessels with breathtaking precision. Shields are down to 30%. May shouted, her hands flying across the controls as she dodged incoming attacks. "Keep us moving," Lex ordered, her eyes locked on the viewscreen. "Dax, send out the decoy drones. Let's give them something to chase." The drones launched moments later, scattering in all directions. As expected, the Concorde's fleet split apart, pursuing the false targets. Meanwhile, the Free Systems Alliance fleet arrived right on schedule, ambushing the disorganized enemy forces from behind. Chaos erupted as ships clashed in a dazzling display of firepower and strategy. Explosions illuminated the void, sending shockwaves rippling through space. Amidst the chaos, Lex spotted the Concorde's flagship, a massive vessel bristling with weapons and surrounded by escorts. It was time to finish this. "May, plot a course for the flagship," Lex commanded. "Full throttle." "You're insane," May muttered, but she obeyed, steering the Erebus toward the behemoth. Blaster fire rained down on them, shaking the ship violently. Alarms blared as systems overloaded, but Lex didn't flinch. Her focus was absolute. "Kane, prep the EMP cannon," she ordered. "We're taking that thing down." Kane worked quickly, rerouting power to the experimental weapon housed in the Erebus belly. When they were within range, he activated it, unleashing a pulse of electromagnetic energy that disabled the flagship's shields and crippled its engines. The Concorde's commanders scrambled to respond, but it was too late. With the flagship vulnerable, the Free Systems Alliance fleet closed in, overwhelming its defenses. One by one, the Concorde ships fell, their crews surrendering or abandoning their posts. By the time the dust settled, the once mighty empire lay in ruins. In the aftermath, Lex addressed the galaxy via hologram. Standing aboard the battered but victorious Erebus, she spoke with quiet confidence. "To the people of the galaxy, I say this. Today, we proved that no empire lasts forever. Today, we showed that courage and unity can overcome even the greatest odds. The Cosmic Concorde is no more, but our work isn't done. Together, let's build a future where no one has to live in fear." Her smile returned, warm and genuine. "This is Captain Alexandra Ryder of the Erebus. Humanity stands with you, not as rulers, but as equals. Peace on Earth and goodwill toward all species." Across the galaxy, cheers erupted. From distant stars to crowded city streets, beings of every shape and size celebrated their newfound freedom. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy belonged to everyone, not just the powerful few. Lex turned off the transmission and leaned back in her chair, letting out a long breath. Around her, the crew exchanged smiles and nods, exhausted but triumphant. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for now, they allowed themselves a moment of peace. The Erebus drifted silently through space, its hull scarred but proud. Humanity had stepped onto the galactic stage not as victims, but as heroes. And Lex. Ryder's smile, a symbol of hope and resilience, would be remembered for generations to come.